Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the upcoming edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined by North Coast Journal's news editor, Thad Greenson, and arts and features editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Pretty good. Hope everyone's doing well. We got blue skies and we got rain at night. This is actually perfect these days, I think, as we're getting closer to Thanksgiving.
The rain has been a revelation. We've been loving it in our house.
Yeah, definitely. Well, how about we dive right into it, Thad, and why don't you tell us what is getting covered this week on the cover of the North Coast Journal?
Yeah, so our cover story this week dives into our county's new red tier status on the state's COVID alert system. So it takes a look at both kind of how we got here, and while it may seem abrupt to some folks who maybe haven't been looking at the numbers really closely, why this has really been building for some time, and kind of everybody expected that we were going to be in an elevated risk tier pretty soon. And then also kind of why this is just dreadful timing with the holidays coming, with rain and the weather getting colder and stuff like that. So really just kind of a state of COVID in Humboldt County story.
And so, I mean, as people that pay attention to, news know that it looks real bad all around the country, but we were sort of spared for a little bit of time, but relatively abruptly, California's, status has changed. The governor made an announcement. You want to tell us a little bit about that change?
Yeah. So the governor statewide, as you alluded to, numbers have just been surging for really 2 or 3 weeks now, with it really starting to go up pretty steeply. And then more alarmingly, there's been, kind of a corresponding rise in hospitalizations over the last week and a half. And so on Monday, the state is supposed to update its COVID risk tiers every Tuesday. And Monday, the governor called kind of an impromptu press conference and said that they were doing it a day early, that they were kind of not throwing out, that's the wrong term, but they were exercising a clause in their blueprint for reopening the economy that allowed them to kind of pull an emergency brake and really take a stronger hand in slowing things down and kind of take more deliberate action. And so I think 40 of the 58 counties in California were elevated at least one risk tier on Monday. And the governor announced that instead of kind of working on a lag time and reevaluating the tiers every week, the state is now going to be looking in real time and reevaluating at least once a week, probably more than that. So I think local officials expect we might get another announcement today, tomorrow, Friday, with other risk tiers in the state changing, possibly Humboldt too.
And so in the article, you tell us a little bit about the two public health officials, what some of their more recent statements, and also you explain the metrics that they're looking at to sort of inform why it was predictable that we would change tiers, and like you maybe we're anticipating even another change coming up soon. So can you tell us a little bit about what our public health folks have pointed out, and then sort of where we stand in terms of our positivity and spread here?
Definitely, yeah. So the story actually kind of starts with Deputy Health Officer Josh Enos, who raised the alarm bell on kind of what our numbers were looking like a few weeks back. And he was basically saying that while we were seeing a big drop in COVID case counts from September to October, that there hadn't really been a corresponding drop in hospitalizations locally. And he was kind of surmising from that, that really the same amount of COVID was circulating locally. They just weren't detecting it as well, which meant that it was then spreading kind of undetected in the community. And so, he kind of foresaw this coming. But really, when, at the Journal, we were tracking the numbers and looking at them in real time, the two metrics the state was looking at is case positivity rates. Test positivity rates. So what percentage of COVID tests in a county are coming back positive? And then a kind of scaled look at just cases per day, average cases per day per 100,000 in population. And so, Humboldt County was cruising along in the yellow tier, but there was a 10+ day lag time between kind of real numbers that we were seeing locally and what the state was looking at to make these tier determinations. So, for instance, on November 10th, the state announced that Humboldt was still in the yellow tier, but that was based on data that was from October 31st. So that we built in lag time, and we just noticed at the Journal, and we've written about it the last couple of weeks, that our numbers were going steadily up. And so we were staying in this yellow tier, but the week, I guess 2 weeks ago, our numbers really looked like they were in the orange, even though we were staying in the yellow tier. And then last week, they really jumped even more substantially, and they were in kind of the red or substantial risk tier category for the state. And so we were wondering going into this week, what the state was going to do, if they were going to bump us up to orange or potentially even red. And obviously, the governor's announcement made that clear. And the last thing I'd say, the health officer, Teresa Frankovich, was very clear on Tuesday that our numbers are still increasing. And so there's a good chance that we might end up in purple pretty quickly here. And I just crunched some numbers before we got on here that were too late to get into to the paper yesterday, the paper that's hitting newsstands today. But if the trajectory of this week holds and our numbers stay consistent, then we really are qualifying for the purple tier. Our numbers really have risen that sharply.
Well, that's unfortunate. There's a lot more in the article, and I know we have a busy show today. We get a lot we want to cover. So anything else you want to add about what maybe public health guidance for the upcoming holiday before we move on to something different?
Yeah, I think Jen will get a little bit into the guidance for the upcoming holiday, but I think the takeaway is that everybody is saying, all health officers are saying, not just here, but throughout the state and the country, is we know the tools to curb COVID spread. You stick to, gathering with your household, you wear a mask when you go out, you wash your hands, you limit all outdoor, all activities outside of your home. We do that, COVID numbers go down. It's really that simple. There's no secrets here.
Yeah. So how about Jen? What can you share with us about Thanksgiving and sort of what we need to be cognizant of, considering that we're in the red tier and we still want to celebrate?
So here's the thing. Every year, there are all these wonderful articles about staying happy and healthy over Thanksgiving, and they usually involve something like take a walk during the day, don't use your leftovers past the weekend, or I don't know, make sure you wait until the timer pops because you think the turkey is done when the breast runs clear, but you have to check the thigh, deep, deep, deep in the thigh. This year, my number one health advice for people is stay home. Do not travel to go to Thanksgiving. There is no over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go. We are not doing it this year. We are staying home. And if we are staying home, just because we're in town does not mean we are blending multiple households to have a Thanksgiving dinner. And so this week I have a column in our on the table column, which is called Thanksgiving Break. And in it, I am trying to look on the bright side of this. This is your shot. This is the 1 year when you can do Thanksgiving on your own terms. And we're going to miss seeing family in person. We're going to miss all that stuff. Yes, and I will get to that. But you can do whatever you want in Thanksgiving. And so I, in my overabundance of confidence and self-derived authority, am giving you all permission to just do whatever. Do you not really love turkey? Are you a turkey person, David?
I do like turkey. Yeah, I make it every year. Yeah.
You're down. I know Thad's a turkey guy.
Huge turkey fan.
So those of you who maybe do not love the turkey, and I know you're out there, especially the people who you buy this big turkey and you eat all the dark meat and then you've got this bizarre hunk of breast left over, this sort of island of meat you don't want. You don't have to do that. You could just do all legs and thighs and just eat at home because you don't have to worry that, cousin Felix needs to have turkey breast sandwiches, because cousin Felix is going to be via Zoom eating on his own. You don't have to eat the cranberry sauce you don't like. Do you need to have the can slices and everybody's judging you? You have the whole can. You do you. You do your thing. Do you want marshmallows on the sweet potatoes, but nobody will ever do it for you? You can just eat a bag of marshmallows. You can go full Snoopy Thanksgiving and just have popcorn, toast, and jelly beans. You could do it. And in fact, if you want to have the full Thanksgiving, but you don't want to kill yourself cooking, you don't have to do that either. Restaurants and food businesses are going to be crushed by this rollback that starts today. Just as we are losing the weather where they can have outdoor seating, Now they're down to 25% capacity indoors. They need to figure something out, and that is going to be takeout. Unless government help comes through, which it doesn't look like that's coming anytime soon, takeout is their only real solid, steady source of income. And I would urge you to either look at what some of the local supermarkets are doing, like Eureka Natural Foods has this gorgeous spread that has like Beck's stuffing, like Beck's bread stuffing. I'm sorry, are you fancy with your supermarket Thanksgiving? I was looking at different restaurants that have all kinds of things. The Murphys will do like, do you just want a couple of quarts of mashed potatoes? If you call, I can tell you from experience that if you call Murphy's and just order a bunch of mashed potatoes, they will put it aside for you. No questions asked. And then there are, all these restaurants that are doing things. So ask yourself, like, what is the restaurant that I want to support, that I want to make sure makes it through this pandemic, or a couple of places? And they might be doing something. Even places that aren't doing like a full turkey. Like I saw that Fat Anne's in Fortuna's or in Ferndale is doing just like sides and rolls and like baked goods. You can get a pumpkin cheesecake from them or a cranberry curd tart.
Nice.
You can just eat a cranberry curd tart and you're like, it's Thanksgiving. Slice of Humboldt Pie is doing not only all their many, many pies, but they are doing a leftover pie, which is like a pot pie filled with stuffing and turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy.
That's the one that got me.
Right?
It's the leftover sandwich in pie form. It's amazing.
Yes. You could get some empanadas, a couple of pies, some leftover pies, and you are only eating pie today.
This is glorious.
It's fantastic. You can have a really fun, really great Thanksgiving, and you can still connect with people. And honestly, it's the only way you're going to be able to live the ethos. Because, if I can just be really harsh for a second, if you are going to travel, go out of town and expose yourself to other communities and then bring that back, or host people from other communities in our community, you're already putting us all in danger. On top of that, if you are mixing households and sitting close enough to pass a bowl of peas and then breathing the same air with no mask over a table, shouting a little so that Aunt Ida can hear you, you are spreading germs and spreading a potential viral load because you're probably asymptomatic. You have to assume that you have it and behave like you have it. And even though maybe it feels like, well, this is going to be Grandpa's last Thanksgiving, you are exposing Grandpa to potentially deadly viral droplets and aerosols. And if you are doing that, if you are making those choices, then you are not really living out the gratitude that you need to be living. Because what we need to be grateful this year for is that we have each other, that those of us who are still standing are alive and healthy, and we need to be grateful for what we're doing for one another, doing to help one another. We need to be grateful for frontline workers, which includes everybody from your grocery store and your hospitals and your emergency services, everybody who's basically taking care of you so that you can like buy your weekly grocery needs and things like that. I don't know how you can say grace, express gratitude, go around the table and talk about how thankful you are if you are flying in the face of all the advice we've been given about protecting those people, ourselves and others. So instead, I am begging you to just eat yourself sick on your own couch and then fall asleep with the turkey buzz and just be happy and then wake up and eat pie. You can just eat pie from the middle of the pie. No one's here. You're alone. And it's fantastic. And, we can be supporting each other, supporting other businesses. I had a very weird Facebook conversation with somebody who was saying, like, you've got to go visit your mother. And I was like, no, I haven't seen her in more than a year, but that's okay. I need to keep her safe. And they were saying, no, life is too short. And I was like, no, you don't know my family. Also, my family immigrated. And it used to be that when you left your home country, you maybe didn't see those people again. You mailed letters and you had that kind of contact, and we're not used to that. We're spoiled now with this constant being in touch and constant seeing each other. But honestly, being able to communicate via social media, via phones, via Facebook, we have so much opportunity to be together. And I think we can still find ways to break bread, enjoy each other's company virtually, and really enjoy this Thanksgiving without having to eat that weird raw cranberry salad that somebody always brings and nobody wants. Live your best Thanksgiving. Do it this year. 1 year off. 1 year to do it exactly how you want it.
Well, thanks for giving us license to celebrate Thanksgiving the way we choose. There was some sage advice in there.
Be free.
So, yeah, we appreciate that you've taken it upon yourself to have the authority to guide us.
Yes, you're welcome.
I appreciate it. So there's a couple other things we kind of want to talk about briefly. Hopefully, Thad, can you fill us in a little bit on the Klamath Dam story that you're covering this week?
Yeah, so we were in the midst of throwing together a busy issue with all of the COVID news and whatnot, and word broke yesterday that there was a new agreement in place to remove the Klamath dams. So we jumped on that, and we'll have more. We have a short story about it in this week's edition and up online, and we'll have more next week. But the short of it basically is that back in July, in 2016, all the stakeholders had kind of resuscitated this debt agreement to remove the 4 hydroelectric dams in the lower Klamath River. And that agreement had kind of hit a snag in July of this year when the Federal Emergency Regulatory Commission basically ruled that PacifiCorp, who owns the dams, couldn't just turn the licenses over to a nonprofit agency organization that was going to remove the dams, that it couldn't just kind of walk away from the project. And so PacifiCorp was like, well, this leaves us open to liability. This leaves our customers open to liability. So this isn't the agreement we signed on to. And everybody had to go back to the negotiating table. And what they announced yesterday is that they've finally reached a memorandum of understanding that the states of California and Oregon will join the nonprofit agency, the Klamath River Renewal Corporation, as co-signees to this new leaseholder, to be new leaseholders for these dams. And then PacifiCorp will get to walk away, but not entirely, because PacifiCorp has basically agreed to pay a third, with the state of Oregon and the state of California paying the other 2/3 of any cost overruns. They've already have millions and millions of dollars in a contingency fund to deal with any kind of unforeseen expenses. But basically, they have agreed that if something goes terribly sideways and costs get way out of control, or there's an accident in removing the dam and there's liability there for somebody, that the 3 entities, the 2 states and PacifiCorp, will split those costs, basically. So they believe that this is, it still needs the Federal Commission's approval, but they believe this is really kind of meets the metrics that the Commission needed, and that this plan will be approved, and that they'll move forward and potentially even remove the dams in 2023 is the timeline they've laid out.
So this is fantastic news from the perspective of environmental justice and indigenous justice, restorative justice. And I know there were, before we switch over to Jennifer for a different story, any last comments you want to make about people who have said great things about this, the potential for collaboration here?
Yeah, I mean, I think I guess 2 things that I'll try to say quickly is, one is, this is an effort that's decades in the making at this point, and that just represents a ton of hard work and a ton of really hard-fought compromise between really divergent interests from the states, the power company, the tribes, upper river ranchers, and irrigators. So this being, kind of removing this roadblock and getting it moving forward again is a huge step. But I'm also reminded of the signing ceremony for the 2016 agreement when the then chair of the Yurok tribe, Thomas O'Rourke, said, Congressman Jared Huffman was kind of talking to him before the ceremony and said, "It's a great day." And Thomas O'Rourke looked at him and said, "My people don't make that determination until the sun sets." And so I think it's important to remember that this is a really encouraging step forward. It looks like the deal is back on track, but really until those dams are removed in what will be like the largest river restoration project in the country's history, until that happens, this thing is still fraught and has a long way to go.
So to be continued. Thank you very much for getting us up to speed on that. We'll look for future updates. Finally, Jennifer, before we wrap up, do you want to tell us a little bit about another story you're covering in the Arts and Features beat this week?
Yes. Pat Bitton, bless her heart. She is a frequent contributor to the Journal, and her gig is theater review. And this week, after honestly jonesing for the past 8 months, she finally got to see a bit of live theater. Not in the public performance sense, because thus far, even though, boy, where does that go after now we're vaulting back into probably purple. I don't know what will be allowed in terms of county-approved live performance. The county allowed Del Arte to have a performance that is not exactly a live performance in the typical sense, in the sense of what they've decided to approve case by case, but they allowed some students to perform the thesis pieces that were part of their school projects, and to have a very small number of people view it as part of the process. And because the school operates, as a theater school, that's part of their, it's approved as part of their office operations. So Pat was among a very small number of people who masked and rose away from the stage, saw 2 performers do a thesis performance piece in which they did not wear masks for each other. The audience all wore masks, but the 2 actors on stage have been potting for the last months as they rehearse. So one of them lives completely alone, and the other one lives in a Del Arte dormitory under a lot of strict rules. And they were able to do this performance that is video recorded. And so the recording done by Zach Lathuris is going to be available on Del Arte's site shortly, and you'll be able to see some theater, maybe not live and in person, but for those of you who have been missing live theater in Humboldt County, the thesis performances, I believe there are 3 of them, will be available online, and you should enjoy them and cross your fingers for when we can get back to that someday.
Well, right on. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Again, we'll have to check it out online to learn more about it. It seems like it's a really cool way for us to get our fix of theater, which, obviously right now we can't. That's just about going to do it for us this week. Thad, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us. North Coast Journal is on newsstands now and also available online. Pick one up. Stay informed. Until next time, take care, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, David.
Eat Thanksgiving at home, like Henry VIII.
Stay home.